Hello, BookTube. This channel recently reached 8.1k Q&A, and we have a ritual in place of asking and answering questions whenever we hit any kind of a 00 or 000, God help us, milestone. So I put out a call for questions, and I got, as usual, a ton of great questions. I don't know where you people get these questions, but I love them, so I have them ready, and we're going to do this. And once again, we will do it in 30-minute installments until we're done. And keep in mind, I copied all of these questions over from the comment section of the video where I asked for them into a Google Doc so that I could manage them better and get rid of the stuff that I don't need to read out loud. So I haven't reviewed them at all, but I do that just to clean it up. So I may have missed your question. If I did that, I apologize. So let's get started right away. Question number one is Bob Van Beek, who says, have you ever known any skateboarders? Yes, a few of my boys have been skateboarders. And have you ever stepped on a skateboard yourself? No, no, I have not. Joe Kerbel says, all right, Steve, been waiting to ask this one. Oh, God, this sounds like trouble. I watched your Daily Penguin on Herodotus. Thought it was great. But you had casually mentioned that you cracked open the histories while inside Khufu's Great Pyramid. I'm curious as to how you made the choice to do that. Did you wake up that morning with that plan in mind? Was your tour guide late and you needed to kill some time? Did you think, well, this tomb is as good as a reading spot as any? Don't get me wrong, it's very cool you've done that, but I need to know the thought process behind it. The thought process was simple. I just wanted to read Herodotus in such a memorable place, probably so that I could later bore an audience with the story of having done so. Birdie and Poppet ask, when you were extensively traveling, in which countries was it most difficult to find varied vegan diet? I was not a vegan when I traveled. And although it's hardly an issue now in days of pandemic, I'm also not a vegan when I travel now. Even though I now restrict myself when I'm by myself, when I'm out and about, especially when I'm the guest of someone else, as I almost always was when I was traveling, then when in Rome. I'm not dictatorial or picky about it at all. So I ate whatever I could. The only line I drew was one that I had to draw occasionally in some places, which is that I will not eat dog. But other than that, I was far more flexible. Also, which country or countries had the most delicious food? Why, England, of course. Just kidding. I think it would probably be Spain. Thank you for your videos, Steve. They are often educational and always entertaining. Oh, well, thank you. Carolyn Morgan says, regarding your empty shelves, if you read a Keeper ebook in 2021, would you look to acquire a paper copy for your little book room? How will you keep track of Keeper ebooks for that project? I've made no secret on this channel of my deep love of ebooks, and that's even considering the way they are now, which is a shadow of what they could be. Imagine if the industry as a whole put work into making ebooks great. Remove the digital rights management from all of them, in other words. Improve the hot links and the visuals. Embed all sorts of other things as well. Imagine how good they could be. Oh my. Oh my. But even now, in their primitive state, I love them to distraction. But I want to point out here that there's no such thing as a Keeper ebook. The reason why I make a distinction for Keeper books here at Hyde Cottage is because of space. I dress it up with the vocabulary of usage. I say, all right, how often are you using these books? Do you love them? Do you go back to them regularly? That's ideally what this room is eventually going to be, is just Keepers. But really, it boils down to space. The reason why they're Keepers, the reason why I'm using those yardsticks is because I don't have room for every book that I encounter. With ebooks, there's no such thing. All ebooks are Keepers. Not only because they don't require any space, but because they're easy to sort. I've made a joke on this channel many times about how I wish that I could simply look at these shelves and call out a book's name and have it answer me so that I knew exactly where it was. Well, with a library of ebooks, you can do that. You can actually look not only for the book, but through the book for any detail at all. So for me, there's no distinction. I keep and love all ebooks. And why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? Rainbow Sky Gay and Proud says, who are some underrated and forgotten gay authors that shouldn't be forgotten about, especially by the gay community? And second, who are some gay short story writers, both old and new, that you would recommend reading? And who are some gay fantasy authors, both old and new, that you would recommend reading? And that is all of my questions. That's a lot. That's a whole video on its own. Even allowing for your rather optimistic projection that the quote-unquote gay community is at all interested in reading. I don't know who this is a whole video to do. John Fox, I've mentioned on this channel before. His one and only novel, The Boys on the Rock, is really good, well worth reading. I would also, for someone who escaped the bullet of AIDS and lived to a ripe old age, I would recommend Larry Kramer. Absolutely, I'd recommend his novels, both the slightly more conventional one and the two enormous bricks that he did late in life, the end of his life. I'd recommend those, but there are lots of others. There are lots and lots of others. There's, in fact, a whole video to be made just about the gay authors that we lost to the initial ravages of the AIDS epidemic. A huge block of talent was just decapitated during that time. I'll have to remember to add that to the list of videos to make. James Holder says, my questions. Have any of the books in the living room made it into the little book room, or has that room remained unchanged? Well, the books here in this new arrangement, every book was taken off the shelf, all the bookcases were rearranged, everything was changed here just recently. And attempts have been made to organize the books on the shelves now that things have settled down here, but there's only so much of that I can do at any one time, so the books aren't anywhere near in their final order. Books are migrating into this room from the other rooms and out of this room to the other rooms all the time, and will be, I imagine, for the rest of the year. If the five guys, my five guys, there's five figures in history that I adore, and that's what he's referring to here for those of you who are new. If the five guys of a legion of superheroes, who would be in the legion of supervillains? Well, Hitler, Kaiser Wilhelm, Pol Pot, Stalin, Brian at Bookish. Jonathan Noel says, how often do you revisit authors that you have previously disliked, and do you reconsider them, reevaluate them all over again? I'm thinking of Faulkner, Cormac McCarthy, Stephen King, etc. Not those three, but I do regularly revisit authors that I have not liked. I regularly do that. Sooner or later, the number will come up for these three that you mentioned here. I regularly do that, and I also revisit older authors that I have loved in a mausoleum kind of way, but haven't gone back to in a while, in case it's time to step them down a few ladder rungs. I do that regularly. I think it's very healthy. I just haven't done it with these three yet. I remember you talking about how you were giving T.S. Eliot's poetry another reconsider. Yes, well, okay, Eliot's a perfect example. I did that just recently, while I've had this channel. I did that. I went back to Eliot, reread all the poetry, reread a ton of critical apparatus, a ton of books about him, biographies, and really enjoyed the process. I think that I value his poetry a lot more than I did, although it's not really for me. Your thoughts on Eliot when you first read him versus now? Well, when I first read him, I thought he was facile. Sort of to use the ready formulation of the 21st century. I thought he was a dumb person's idea of what a smart poet was. And I have that re-examination that I did, not only reading Eliot, but reading all about him, reading every critical study that came up at the Brattle, really did up my estimation. It didn't move him into the rung of somebody that I love. But, like, for instance, as happened, for instance, with Auden, where I thought he was a flyweight nothing poet. And I went back, I reread and re-examined, really lived with and rolled around with all of his poetry and a few critical studies, and there my critical estimation changed enormously. I now venerate Auden. I love his work. It really was that I was just missing a lot, and maybe that's true with Eliot too. But it didn't reveal itself in this latest re-examination. How are we doing for the camera? I'm still combating the shaky cam effect here. I don't want to be wobbling either, but it is wobbling just a bit. I can't quite remember. A lot of you were pointing out that I did film in this particular setup years ago, back when my girls were still alive. And I remember that, but I can't for the life of me remember. I don't think the camera was wobbling when I did those videos, and it's wobbling now, and I can't for the life of me remember how I stabilized it back then. Anyway, Jenny Parks says, Are there any books / film / TV, etc., that you would like to experience for the first time again, or watch someone else experience it for the first time? Well, not experience it for the first time myself, but a little while ago, last year, I think, I showed Ken Burns' The Civil War to my muscular young men, my muscular teenagers. Well, they aren't all teenagers anymore. Time passes on. I sat them down. I forced them to put away the jewels and put away the cell phones and watch this thing, and they loved it. I was worried that maybe their whole generation just can't pay attention to anything anymore, and I was wrong. They loved it. So it took about an hour, but after the first hour, they were spellbound. And once the war in the documentary, once the war proper began, they wanted more. So that was great. Michael Wright says, "Who are your favorite fantasy authors still writing? Do you like the First Law series?" That's by Joe Abercrombie. I do like the First Law series, yes. And I would also add Brandon Sanderson and Brent Weeks. I know they're typical answers, but I think they're both really enjoyable. If they are both, I have a strong suspicion they are the same person, but I'm willing to hear alternative theories on that. PHXSNS1 says, number one, do you have a special affection for pre-code Hollywood movies as many film geeks do? I don't have a special affection for pre-code Hollywood movies, and I especially don't have a special affection for film geeks. Number two, what are some of your favorite non-English language movies? They're all junk. Donna Huguenot number 59 says, "Hi, Steve. My question is, where's my favorite shark? I missed the shark. The shark is visible. If that's the shark you mean, isn't that the shark you mean? If you mean Meg is in this room somewhere. I don't know quite where." Claire Fenby says, "I'm so invested in your Q&As now." So you have plenty of company. Although that's not a question. Paper Mache says, "Have you ever featured on screen in a film production of any kind, indie or studio, fiction or documentary?" Nope, never. Until now. Until BookTube. Raghav Salwan says, "Love the content. Now for my questions. Number one, favorite Indian authors, preferably non-living." Well, I made a video for the Daily Penguin on R.K. Narayan. I think R.K. Narayan is fantastic. I revisit that work all the time. Also, Chaudhuri. Never read. I don't think I've read everything by that author, Nick Chaudhuri, but everything I've read I've loved. And question number two, most undeserving winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature. That would be Bob Dylan. That would be the year that the Nobel Academy sought to give the world's most prestigious literary award to an illiterate cokehead who neither wrote nor could read the lyrics for which he was credited, and who only sang them ineptly. Sang them less well, not only than any other recording artist at the time could have sung them and recorded them, but also than any other person at the time. A pipe welder in Pittsburgh could have done a better job with any of Dylan's famous lyrics that weren't his, that he didn't understand, that he can't read. That when the Nobel Committee did that in order to command a news cycle, when they prostrated their award in order to command a news cycle like that, I gave up on them. And I'm hoping that a lot of other people did too. The Nobel is worthless now. It doesn't mean anything because they gave it to Dylan. NW says, "What do you think about Marcus Aurelius and Stoicism?" Well, I can't help thinking of Marcus Aurelius as a historical figure rather than a philosophical one. That's how I was introduced to him. That's how I know him. That's how I've read about him. So I don't really think about him in connection with Stoicism in the way that I think a lot of young people especially do today. Stoicism as a philosophy, well, it depends. Is it the COD Stoicism of YouTube that's goal is to center the whole of the universe on you or to the exclusion of all else? That, of course, is a philosophy that I don't like at all. I think it's poisonous, and it's so widespread. That bastardization of Stoicism is so widespread. But a certain element of Stoicism I very much like, and that is to just offload bootless worry. Don't tangle yourself up in knots over something over which you have no control. That you'll be happier and more content if you do that. I think that contentedness is drastically overrated as a virtue. I think you're here to get agitated. You're here to care. You're here to give Fs, unlike that stupid construction from 5 or 6 years ago. Look at all the Fs that I don't give. You're here to give Fs. You're here to care, and to reach outside yourself and all that sort of stuff. And there are tenets of Stoicism that work against that, I think, especially the cod Stoicism of its misinterpretation of the 21st century. So much of the 21st century is just a gigantic industry. It makes millions and millions of dollars, so I don't deny that it exists, but a gigantic industry that is solely designed to legitimate the incredible self-centeredness of young men between the ages of 18 and 25. To legitimate that, not to create it, because young men between the ages of 18 and 25 already have that self-centeredness, but to legitimate it, to make them feel good about it, as opposed to what had happened for the 7,500 years before that, which is to make them feel bad about it, to beat it out of them, to enlist it out of them, to pray it out of them, to apprentice it out of them. Whatever way that was taken was a way to get that topspin off of those young men so that they could then go on to be worthwhile citizens, worthwhile husbands and brothers and fathers. And that is gone now. That there's instead a multi-million-dollar industry in the 21st century designed solely to make that legitimate, to make those young men feel that they are justified in concentrating the whole of their attention, the whole of the universe in their conception on themselves. And the thing that worries me the most about that is what kind of fathers those men are going to make. I don't even want to think about it. I'm hoping that the ironclad narcissism that they are encouraged to feel will prevent them from having children. But if it doesn't, if nature takes its course, well, a lot of you will know this already. The worst father in the world is an ironclad narcissist, because he will view his children, especially his sons, as competitors. And he'll make their life a living hell. So I've gone far afield from your question. I like some aspects of Stoicism, I guess, is the short answer. You're not going to get short answers on these Q&As. So I've been trying to hold the tripod to make this steadier. But I don't know if that's helping or not. Of course, I have the tripod sitting on a book. Obviously. And don't judge me, because I know that you said, book people, their useful furniture is only books. That's all they ever do. I have it sitting on the box set of Robert Alter's translation of the Old Testament, of the Hebrew Bible, the 3 volumes in hardcover. And I don't know if that's helping, or maybe more than one book would help. I'll keep experimenting. At least I hope it's a little bit better now, so that you can concentrate on my pearls of wisdom. Where are we here anyway? Amanda Nichols says, "Hi Steve, you were spot on about how excellent a guinea pig night before Christmas is." Yes, it's sublime. Are there any other Xmas, that's Christmas books you mean, you don't mean Xmas, you mean Christmas, themed books for young children you can recommend? Well, lots of them. There have been, for instance, innumerable children's picture books of A Visit from St. Nick, the poem A Visit from St. Nick. There have been innumerable ones, and some of them have been very, very nice. But another one that I would have is not so much a Christmas book specifically, it's The Big Snow by Elmer Hayder. Elmer Hayder and is it Emma Hayder? Berta Hayder? The Hayders. Hader. There's an old children's book. I think it won the Newbery Award or the Caldecott Award or whatever. There was an old children's book called The Big Snow that is wonderful. Just wonderful. A quintessential winter book. No idea if it's still in print. But QT says, "I have a problem with reflection on finished books because I immediately start reading something new. Do you have any advice?" Well, yes, I have a little bit of advice. Number one would be, the construction of your question says that the reason why you have trouble reflecting on the book you've just read is because you move immediately on to another book. You could not do that. You could exercise something that, if you Google it, you'll know what I mean. In the 21st century, you will never have encountered the term expressed to you by anyone in the wild. But if you Google the term self-control, you will see what I mean. You could not move straight on to the next book. You could instead decide to reflect on the book that you just read. That would help a lot. But also a reading journal. Not so much a personal journal, but a reading journal where you start the heading off with all the stuff about the book, the title, the author, the time that you acquired it, where you acquired it, how much you paid for it, why you acquired it, where you heard from it, and then one paragraph synopsis of the book, and then your thoughts on the book, quotes from the book, commonplace quotes from the book. For many years, I kept a reading journal, and I liked the process a lot. The only reason I don't do it anymore is because I've sort of internalized it. I just do it by memory now. I don't write it down like that. But I I know people who keep reading journals, including a couple of people who keep reading journals who don't keep personal journals, and they really enjoy it. It really helps. So you might try that. If you have a working printer, you could also put a printout of the book, the picture, the cover of the book in there as well. But you don't have a working printer because no one has a working printer because printers only work once. They aren't actually printers, they're printed oncers. They work once, they print out something, and then it's, I got this thing, I need, I don't know, toner or cartridge or something. It hasn't worked. And I've had about 20 printed oncers in my life. Someday, technological science will create a device that can print multiple things without breaking. But we're not there yet. And QT has a second question. Have you always had such enthusiasm for life? Yes. Yes, I have. Partly because I was raised and socialized by a species that has enormous enthusiasm for life, and it isn't human. Humans tend to jade out of that pretty quickly and never get it back except in isolated instances. And the other factor involved is that at one point I was told that my life was coming to an end. At one point, 20 years ago, thereabouts, I was told, we'll try to find you some quality time. We'll try to get you some quality time. When you hear a person in a white coat at a hospital tell you that, when you hear them say, we'll try to get you some quality time, that's when you know that you have 4 or 5 weeks at the most to be alive. That's the phrase that they use when they mean you're going to be hooked up to tubes in 2 weeks, and that's it for you. And I was told that, and it didn't happen. But when I thought it was going to happen, you get a sentence like that passed on you, and then it is lifted. Then, unless you're Dostoevsky, you're going to be giddily happy for the rest of your life. It removes the cobwebs, and it keeps them removed. So, but mainly I attribute it to my childhood playmates. Are you going to come up here and bounce everything around, you little monster? My surly houseboy stopped by earlier this morning, and she attacked him like he was the first good meal she'd seen in 2 weeks. Just launched herself at him. Friendly. I mean, not aggressively, but you'd be hard-pressed for his toes to tell that. Anyway, let's see here. Clash 2. How are we doing for time? We're fine. Clash 2 says, hey, Steve, have you read? Yes, I flippin' said it. Those of you who are new to the channel, Clash 2 is referring to the fact that you may not ask me, have you ever read? You may not start your question with, have you ever read, now or ever? Because I read 150 pages an hour. I read for 8 hours every day at least. Sometimes it's twice that. And I have been doing those two things for longer than you've been alive. So I would much rather that you start off with, what did you think of, than have you read? I'd much rather have that so that I don't ever hear again in my life, have you ever read A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens? Good Lord. Let's see what Clash 2 wants to know. Morrissey's autobiography. Yes, I have read Morrissey's autobiography. And his novel List of the Lost. No, I haven't read List of the Lost. I thought the autobiography was incredibly maudlin, overworked crap. It was very, in that regard, it was very, very Irish. Except for the one other quintessential Irish element in prose, which is genius. Blinding genius. It didn't have that. It had the overworked part, and it had the maudlin part, but it didn't have the genius part to counteract and then rescue those things. Colo 1546 says, number 1, did you ever meet Christopher Hitchens at one of those Washington parties or anywhere else? No, I've never met Hitchens. We jousted in print, but never in person. And I certainly never met him at any of the Washington parties that I was talking about, because in this case you were doing me the compliment of misestimating when those parties happened. Christopher Hitchens would have been in grade school when the parties I was talking about happened. And question number 2, Superman, red trunks or no red trunks? Art thou mad? Red trunks. Art thou mad? The question refers to the fact that when DC had a disastrous continuity revamp called the New 52, they gave Superman a new costume. They gave Superman a new costume. They gave Wonder Woman a new costume too, and made her essentially Wonder Conan, because she suddenly became a knuckle-dragging, brainless, brute barbarian who had a sword. She had a lasso, but she had a sword as well, and that she liked to kill things first and ask questions later. Total profanation of anything that Wonder Woman had been or should be. But they also changed Superman's costume. They gave him popped Nehru collars, lots of piping all over the place, and they removed the red shorts. I think of all the aspects of the New 52 Superman, the fact that he was Dr. Manhattan, the fact that he was an a-hole, the fact that he floated 2 feet above the ground when he was talking to people, I think of all the things that I hated about the New 52 Superman, that was the thing I hated the most. Question number 3, what stops you from self-publishing your works? Ami 24601 is what stops me from self-publishing my works. He does, and he alone. And number 4, did you ever climb the Glastonbury Tor? Okay, all right, let's review. Let's review the basics. We've already been over Have You Ever Read? Another basic on this channel, I have been everywhere except Australia and New Zealand, the Australian archipelago. I have been everywhere except for there. Notice that in that statement, I am not qualifying anything. I have been everywhere except for there. So not just your hometown, but your basement of your current house. Not just your home state, but all the states around it. Now, I want you to ask yourself, Colo 1546, is Glastonbury Tor in Australia? Is it in New Zealand? Is it in New Guinea? No. No, it's not. Let's see here. Manbro Joho says, what's your opinion of Thomas Hobbes? I like him. And are you a fan of jazz music? If so, what are some of your favorite artists? I am not. I think we have time for one more. Frida, what are you doing, baby? Come up here. Come up here. There you go. There you go. All right, why don't you settle down so I don't have to think about you? Just, oh, not for that kind of astonished look. Not forever, baby. Just for now. I think about her all the time. She knows that. Let's see here. Let's do Clint Raimondo, and then we'll finish up. Congrats on 8.1K subscribers. Thank you. My question, how was your visit to the Philippines? I've been to the Philippines many times. What was your favorite place? The old governor's palace. Your favorite Filipino dish? What was the name of it? Sina something or other, Sinagag or something like that. It was an absolutely mind-bogglingly delicious garlic fried rice dish. It was served to me. I had hosts at the time, and they served just a mountain of food and good conversation and uproarious Filipino laughter. But one of the pieces in that smorgasbord was this garlic fried rice dish that, oh my, was so good. I wish I could remember the name of it. It's in my journal from the time. I could remember the name of it, but if you know Filipino food, you'll probably know what I mean. Oh my, it was a garlic fried rice dish, Sina something or other, Sinan. I don't remember the specific of it. It was a long, long time ago, but that was number one. Okay, we'll stop there and we'll move on in a minute. Thank you, BookTube.